News. Great pleasure to welcome Peyton Inge back to the North American microphones. I know we're going to cover a number of other stories as well, including that story out of Pennsylvania where a truck driver faces vehicular homicide charges. But Peyton, I wanted to get your take on this story. I had Pam Zeckman on with CBS 2 in Chicago, and she was detailing a court battle that is underway involving a truck driver that ran into the back of a vehicle, killing the woman that was in the vehicle ahead of him. And some of the video taped depositions, the videotape testimony that's been presented in court so far looks like, and I'm saying looks like, it's subject to interpretation, the driver may have fallen asleep behind the wheel. His defense attorneys are saying something totally different, that they say that the driver was being vigilant and was reacting to what was going on ahead of him. So it's an ongoing debate in the Chicago area at the moment. With that being said, what is your understanding as far as privacy laws? A lot of debate about cameras facing inside of the cab looking at the driver. You practiced law for a number of years. Are drivers entitled to any kind of privacy while they're operating that vehicle? I mean, it is their workplace, I would imagine. Right, or is that subject to interpretation? And welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always good to be on. Anytime you get in a car or a truck, for that matter, on a public road, you have no right to privacy. And the Supreme Court's been pretty adamant about that ever since they've been presented with a question. And if you're on the public roads, people can take pictures of that vehicle. They can observe you. And so in terms of, a company putting a camera in or around your truck, they can certainly do that. Now, if the employees don't like it, they're certainly free to find employment elsewhere or do something along those lines. And the truth is I think cameras, they're a two-edged sword for both employers and for drivers. If your driver messes up, it's going to be caught on camera. 9 times out of 10, it's not the driver that messed up. It's it's the four-wheeler in front of you that tried to change lanes and locked up the brakes that actually caused the accident. But that 1 time out of 10 that it was the truck's fault, the camera's going to catch it.
Yeah, and I know you work with a number of trucking companies out there, very large trucking companies. Are you finding that that many of the trucking companies are indeed considering putting cameras inside of the cab to watch the drivers? Are they doing it now, considering it? What has been some of the feedback you've heard from folks?
More and more companies are putting cameras in their trucks. And the feedback, particularly from the big companies, is that, look, we hire the best drivers we can get, and we train them, we take care of them, and we trust our drivers. And because we trust our drivers, we know that most of the time when something happens, it's not our driver's fault, and we want to be able to prove it, and we're going to use that camera to protect our driver and to protect our company, because when we go to court, I'm going to be able to show the jury just why that car got smushed. It's because he did something stupid. Yeah. And it's easy for me to say that, but it's a lot more effective when I can play the videotape of that car driving out in front of the semi and then missing its gear or doing whatever it does, and then getting flattened. It's very hard to refute video evidence where it shows what actually caused that collision.
It's interesting. I've heard from a number of drivers on the program here on the air, a lot of folks weighing in on Facebook about this story, saying that they would leave altogether, that they just don't want the cameras facing them. They understand the need for the cameras to be looking out onto the roadway. Why do you think that is? Why do you think a lot of drivers would say, you know what, it's too much. I'm going to pack it up. I'm going to get out of the business if that camera is looking at me. Is it a big brother thing that is maybe sending folks maybe to the exits when this whole idea comes out?
Well, I think that just comes down to human nature, and it's hard to explain, particularly though with folks that have been driving for a long time. They're used to, the kind of the solitary aspects of the road. They can talk on the CB. They might be able to talk on the phone to their friends. But at the same time, even with a team driver, it's just the two of you, or it's yourself. And the idea of having someone else in authority, regardless of who it is, with the ability to remote in and kind of monitor the actions of what's going on behind the wheel, I think legitimately concerns some people. Doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. Doesn't mean the company's doing anything wrong. But I think it just comes down to human nature. And I know when you see that all the time. Anytime you come into a workplace and you institute a new rule, you always have a lot of people that don't like it, even if the basis for the rule is legitimate.
Yeah. A lot of folks weighing in. Patty Hales just wrote in a few minutes ago, and she says, being a female driver, no camera looking at me. Who is to say that somebody will not point it into the bunk? Possibility that might happen out there? I mean, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think that'd be a huge problem for a company doing that. And the cameras we have today, it's pretty obvious which direction they're pointed. And if you want privacy in your bunk where you sleep, then close the blinds.
Yeah, close the blinds up there. And also too, this whole idea, everywhere we go, I mean, it could be a public place like a McDonald's, or if you go into like a department store like Sears, cameras are everywhere. Now, you and I are in the Dallas area, and and I know as a fact that Dallas police have cameras all over the central business district. I mean, it's monitoring activity. It has helped cut down on crime in every aspect of the city of Dallas life out there. So it's a way of life out there. It's something we just got to accept, that we've got to think, okay, there's always going to be a camera on us no matter what we're doing.
I think that is a reality. It's hard to find an accident these days where there aren't pictures from 5 or 6 different people who just were taking pictures out the window of their cars they drove by.
Yeah.
Cameras and the ability to record data from your cell phone or from a camera, regardless of who has that camera, we've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And it is a fact of everyday life. It doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a breaking point about where those cameras should not be pointed. Obviously, the bunk would be one of them. But I wouldn't see any harm in pointing a camera in a driver's seat or in surrounding the truck with cameras to demonstrate just how safe that truck is driving.
It's very interesting, too. I mean, this whole idea of cameras coming to the forefront, the talk about giving police officers body cams in light of what happened with the Ferguson situation. So, again, it's very relevant that the whole idea of cameras are indeed going to be every place. Drivers, what do you think? Again, 888-876-2336. Attorney Peyton Inge is with me, and Peyton, the phones are ringing off the wall. Let's go to Jerry, first up in Indiana. Thanks for waiting, sir, and calling back. You're on with Attorney Peyton Inge. How do you feel about these cameras inside of the truck looking at you?
Mark, Peyton, I could adjust to that, but I want to go here to the law of unintended consequences. I've been in the business since 1966, third generation. I'm going to reveal something. It's a little bit of physiology here also, is the human being from time to time gets a case of the sleepies that aren't predictable. So I get a case of the sleepies. I'm coming across Interstate 84 in Oregon a few minutes ago. There's all kinds of signs, emergency stopping only. So go to that gentleman that nodded off just before his accident, for a human being. This happens a lot out here, and most people behind the desk don't know it. So am I to pull off on the shoulder of the road in an emergency parking only because I feel the sleepies coming on? All I need is a 20-minute power nap. And then somebody runs into me in a four-wheeler who's also having the sleepies because I'm in an emergency parking only having a power nap to take care of my sleepies. What are we going to do when that does happen to the driver is the bottom line answer. I'll listen.
Okay, Jerry, thank you, man. Unintended consequences, Peyton, I would imagine they are numerous, correct, in that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say, though, to Jerry, my strong advice is never, ever pull over in the emergency lane or that shoulder ever, unless that truck breaks down. I'm seeing more and more collisions where a four-wheeler is drunk or tired or doing whatever and runs into the back of a truck that stopped off the side of a roadway. And, the driver and the company winds up getting sued because the four-wheeler couldn't stay in the lane. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, they're looking for somebody to blame, and the truck's the only one with the deep pockets. But, yeah, the law of unintended consequences, it would come into effect at some point. And it's hard to say what the indefective cameras in the trucks will be. But I know whether it's for, the police officers in Texas, they use cameras. If the lights are on, the camera's running, and I personally love that. I think the body camera is probably going too far, but for a truck, at least having cameras pointed out, I think is an excellent idea if you trust your fleet.
Yeah, and is that what it really gets down to, is having that trust out there? I mean, you can't really take trust to court, can you? You do need that evidence in hand.
Yeah, I mean, you can have the safest fleet in the world, and you can have one bad apple, or you can have one bad lapse in judgment, and it'll bite you. And you can't really protect against that. What you can do is protect your bottom line by planning in advance and trusting the vast majority of your drivers. And I think that's where cameras, particularly ones that are pointed out, come into play and are a huge asset for certainly for the larger companies. And some of the smaller companies where you've got drivers that you love them to death, but you might have some issues with them from time to time.
Oh, sure.
Cameras might not be as valuable.
And when you go to court, when you look at things like this, I mean, just in general terms, I would imagine it varies from court case to court case, but is ultimately the judge the final say as to whether or not that video evidence is presented in court?
Yeah, the judge gets to say whether or not it comes in or not. And as long as it's on point, it should come in most cases.
Okay, so again, it's up to the judge. All right, hold on. I've got a lot of folks that are calling in. Drivers, attorney Peyton Inge with me, and we're talking about the legalities of these cameras that are facing you inside of the cab. What do you think? 888-876-2336. All of it centering around the story that Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Pam Zekman put together for CBS 2 in Chicago. Very interesting story, because once you click on that story that she's done, you'll see the video. You will see the video of the driver looking like he's falling asleep. His defense attorneys say he wasn't falling asleep out there. A lot of folks are saying that we need these cameras in the cab watching the drivers. Do you think it needs to be mandated by the federal government, or does the company have the responsibility of putting in the cameras on their own? Would you leave your company, indeed, if that scenario presented itself to you? Exactly 20 minutes after, it's time for the weather here on the Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking Channel. If you are traveling out and about, drivers in the areas of northern Pennsylvania, you can look for some snow to accompany your trip as you head into the rest of this afternoon and this evening. Metro areas that could experience some slippery travel tonight include State College in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Binghamton, Buffalo, Albany, New York, Rutland, Vermont, Worcester, Massachusetts, and Portland, Maine. Then just enough of a wintry mix can fall to cause slow and slippery travel along parts of the New York Thruway and Massachusetts Turnpike and portions of the I-80, I-84, I-88, and I-91 corridors during the evening hours today. And the wintry mix will then shift into northern Maine and neighboring Canada by Wednesday morning. I've got more weather posted on my Facebook page, SiriusXM's Road Dog Trucking News. I'm Mark Willis, back in a minute right here on SiriusXM 146.
This is Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis, keeping today's drivers informed on issues that are important to them.
Driver's attorney Peyton Inge with me. Always a great pleasure to have him on the radio, breaking down the legalese of what's going on out there in the trucking industry. Peyton, fascinating story. If you get a chance, check out the link to the story that Pam Zekman did. I'll post it rather, on Facebook a little bit later on this afternoon once I get off the air. But it does show, the extent of how cameras are becoming very prevalent out there in pretty much everything we're doing. And a lot of people are saying, you know what, I'm inside of my truck here. I'm entitled to a privacy right. That may be true once you get behind the curtain of that bunk. But when you are inside of that cab, you're operating that vehicle, that really is a public workplace. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. So again, it's open to a lot of controversial comments out there. I know you cover a lot of this. You do a lot of legal research. Where can drivers find you? Let's get your website out there.
Yeah, y'all can follow me through the firm's website, ChambleeRyan.com. That's CHAMBLEE Ryan, RYAN.com.
Okay, outstanding. Do you do Facebook at all, Twitter?
Not really. I have a Facebook account, but I log on about once a year.
Once a year. Okay. So I should not ask you if you do any tweets. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, I've heard of tweets, but that's about as far as I've gotten.
No, I got you. No, it's social media, man. I'll tell you, it really does take a while to get used to it. Well, again, a sincere thanks for doing this. And let's go to Doc in California. Sir, you're on with attorney Peyton Inge. Your feedback, thoughts on cameras looking at you inside of the cab. Some companies say it'll make you a better driver. What would you say?
Well, first I wanted to touch on the, the reporter you had on earlier. She was saying that it would only take a quick snapshot of a heartbreaking accident. But on the flip side, they say they want to use it as a training tool. To use it as a training tool, that camera has to be active at all times. How are they going to be able to view you and tell you you're doing something wrong over an extended period of time if the camera's not active?
Yeah, and to that point, just to expand on that, Doc, Pam was stating that that if there's an adverse braking reaction, if you got to move the truck over, say, sharply to the right or to the left, that's when the camera's going to kick on. And she was saying that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 seconds, and then the camera's going to shut off. You're saying that's not enough time to teach somebody what they're doing wrong?
Well, my point, that was just a secondary point I wanted to make. My main point I wanted to make, we as drivers already live by a different standard of rules. We can have an accident that we are 100% not guilty, and attorneys will pick apart everything about our truck, our logbooks, our license, our lives, and then we end up liable in a lawsuit for $10 million. So now you add a camera into it, and they say it's only for the accident. But these same attorneys are going to use this video footage to then say, look, the standard industry, his head should be on a pivot every 5 to 8 seconds. He went 10 seconds that time. Look, he picked up a cup of coffee. He's not, you can be the safest driver in the world, but an attorney is going to use that video to pick you apart and make you a total moron on the roads out here. Okay. And you'll end up liable for every accident you're ever involved in.
And Peyton, is he on spot target with that? I mean, can attorneys indeed look at a driver's actions, say, behind the wheel and scrutinize every little single detail, like, picking up a cup of coffee, for example?
Well, they certainly can, but at the end of the day, the people that you're are appealing to, the jurors, they're normal people too. And as a defense attorney that defends trucks and companies all across the country, there is far more. The video evidence is probably the most useful tool you can have in most cases because it personalizes the driver. It shows the emotion that he experiences, and it shows what they did to avoid a scenario that they did not create. Now, if I've got somebody falling asleep on that camera, that's a problem. But it's extremely rare that you're going to see a situation like that if those cameras are used properly.
Yeah, somebody just wrote in, Jose Cuervo, why do the cameras record voice? He says that has nothing to do with safety or for training purposes. Why do the cameras record voice? He says that's an invasion of privacy. What is your estimation on that?
Well, the use of the recording feature when it comes to audible is that if you're talking, a lot of times drivers will enunciate a concern that isn't necessarily within the camera's view. So the driver is going to be able to see something with their head on a swivel that isn't yet necessarily visible to the camera. And the audible component can be very useful. The audible component can also be some of the most damaging if you've got a driver that is concerned but becomes very adamant that the other driver was at fault, starts yelling, things like that. So the audible component can be problematic. I'm personally not a huge fan of it. I like cameras that point out from the truck. If you have one pointed at the driver, it's not bad, but I prefer them just pointed out, observing the other traffic. I think that's probably the best way to go in terms of protecting your assets, which are your drivers and your trucks.
Absolutely, and these assets, just the trucks alone could run into the hundreds of millions of dollars out there. Drivers, what do you think? 888-876-2336. Bottom of the hour, it's time for news here on Sirius XM.
And now the latest from the Road Dog Trucking Radio News Team on Sirius XM.
And indeed, some of the top stories. CR England has applied for an exemption from the federal minimum training conditions in what is called 49 CFR 383.25. That requires a commercial learner's permit holder to always be accompanied by a commercial driver's license holder, a CDL holder with a proper CDL class and endorsement seated in the front seat of the vehicle, while the CLP holder performs behind the wheel training on public roads or highways. And CR England is requesting an exemption to allow CLP holders who have passed the CDL skills test but not yet received the CDL document to drive a commercial motor vehicle without being accompanied by a CDL holder, provided the driver has the documentation of passing the skills test. If you want to weigh in on that story, it's up on Facebook, SiriusXM's Road Dog Trucking News. Getting a little bit cheaper at the pumps, according to the Department of Energy. Diesel's national average pump price dropped 2.3 cents to $3.60 a gallon after last week's plunge in oil prices to a 5-year low. Gasoline also fell, dropping 4.3 cents to $2.77 a gallon. That's the lowest price in more than 4 years. The DOE, by the way, puts out a weekly survey of filling stations, and diesel's decline left it at its lowest level since February 21st of 2011, when it was $3.57. Gasoline has not been as low since it was $2.73 on October the 4th. Diesel has risen just once in 22 weeks since June. Then the national average is 27.8 cents less than a year ago. It has also declined almost 32 cents since then, while gasoline has plunged almost $1 a gallon. Drivers, you know, a lot of states have measures in place that have been passed by their legislatures that tie in road funding directly to the price of oil and gas. And as you know, oil prices have fallen quite a bit. In 2013, for example, the Texas legislature passed what is called Senate Joint Resolution 1. That is a resolution that puts a proposition on the ballot to take money headed to the state's so-called rainy day fund and redirect a portion to transportation funding. That rainy day fund, properly called the Economic Stabilization Fund, is fueled with oil and gas severance taxes. And if the fund is filled to a certain level, part of those taxes would then head to the fund or sent to transportation. And the proposition, which passed with about 80% of the vote, has about $1.74 billion ready to go towards transportation, according to the Comptroller's office. But at the time when the SJR passed, the price of a barrel of West Texas Intermediate was trading at $106 per barrel. Now it is down to $69 per barrel. That is a 35% drop. Drivers, that's the news at 33 minutes after the hour. I'd love to get your take on this. Again, it's 888-876-2336. Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Pam Zeckman, CBS 2, did a great story about cameras inside of the truck and how some of the video is now being used in court proceedings involving a driver that looks like, according to some, fell asleep behind the wheel. The driver's attorneys say, wait a minute, that's not the case. The driver was reacting to an impending situation. The end result, the driver of that truck rear-ended a vehicle, killing a woman. So this is all coming to trial in the city of Chicago, but it's bringing up a lot of questions about, you know, the relevancy of the cameras looking at you while you're driving those vehicles out there. What do you think about all of that invasion of privacy? Do you find that should the decision be up to the owner? What happens to the data? Candy's got that question coming up in California. We're going to get to that coming up in a minute right here on the Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking Channel.
This is Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis, keeping today's drivers informed on issues that are important to them.
38 minutes after, drivers, and again, the phone number is 888-876-2336. And Peyton, again, thank you, sir. As you would imagine, lots of folks are calling in about this. Left lane in South Carolina, you're a good soul. Thanks for waiting during the break. How do you feel? Thumbs up or thumbs down with cameras in the cabs looking at you?
Well, I've got a cam facing out of my truck. The cam inside of the truck I find issue with. But the biggest thing that nobody's talked about is the potential for these things to be hacked, number one, misused by companies and lawyers. The lawyer you were just talking about did to kind of touch on it, but there's also situations where we go into certain places like Navy bases, nuclear reactors. You can't have a cam in a vehicle.
Yes,
and if
right.
you do and you have it permanently mounted, it can be hacked. It can be used for someone's bad intentions.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Left Lane. Peyton, what is your take on that? I mean, technology indeed is not foolproof. I mean, just look what's going on with some of the, the major retailers. They're getting their systems hacked all the time. Is that one of the downsides to this, is that these cameras indeed can be hacked in and the information used against the driver? What would you say? Is that a possibility?
I can't imagine hacking into a camera. It's one thing if you're hacking into, quote-unquote, a baby monitor or something that's being transmitted over shortwave radio or something along those lines that anybody with a receiver can pick up. But you're talking about a digital signal in most cases. Mm-hmm. And hacking into that is a major SEC violation, one. But then two, I don't see that being useful. It's not as if you're hacking into
financial database or something.
A financial database or some sort of sneaky peek camera in a shower someplace. I mean, it's a truck. It is a valid concern when driving onto restricted areas with civilian vehicles,
right.
And that could be a problem. But in my experience, most of the civilian vehicles are picking up and dropping off in unrestricted areas, and it's the military that moves stuff around within their base to classified sites. Unless you have, for some reason, a civilian contractor that has top-secret clearance, you're not going to have an outsider driving a nuclear rocket of some sort into a classified.
Yeah, and getting those security credentials, man, that is a tough nut to crack. I mean, boy, that's a very select few individuals that have got that kind of clearance that can access that kind of military installations. Candy in California is on. Thanks for waiting during the break, Candy. You got a great point. What happens to all this data, right? Hey, Candy.
Hi.
Hi, Candy. How are you? You are live across North America. Welcome. You brought up a great point. What happens to all of this data? Is that a concern to you?
Exactly. And the fact that it can be activated remotely. I'm a female driver. I don't want any videotape out there. And they say, you go behind the curtain and everything like that, but how do I know when it's turned on and when it's not? Is it just when you turn on the vehicle it's activated, or can it be activated anytime?
Well, that's some very good questions, Candy. I appreciate you calling in. Your phone was starting to break up. I think very legitimate questions, right, Peyton? And I think if it is maybe in the planning works for a company to put these cameras in, man, they better do a very good job explaining to the drivers, what the purpose of the camera is, when the camera will be on, when will it be off, what will trigger it. Is that the way to win folks over to this whole idea about cameras inside of the vehicle, explaining the whole process top to bottom?
Oh, absolutely. The more you explain it to your employees, the more readily they'll accept it, in my mind. A lot of the folks that have cameras pointed in, the camera, when it's on, will display a little red light, and folks know that they're being videotaped, and it's typically in response to an incident, such as a hard-braking incident or something along those lines that triggered the camera to begin recording and then transmitting, because that is a lot of data, and nobody has a storage space for that. So most of these systems are going to record kind of on a continual type basis, but it's going to be some triggering event that actually causes it to transmit that data and a limited set of that data to the company.
And does the company have the right to hold on to that data for an extended period of time, I would imagine?
They could. You'd be talking in most cases about a very limited window of data that they would have from that particular incident, but they can hold on to that, to the end of time if they need to.
Okay, let's go to Brian in Texas. Thank you, sir, for waiting. Your take on this, man. Big story about these cameras going in. A lot of companies are considering this. What say you? Thumbs up or thumbs down to the whole idea?
Well, hi, sir. How are you?
Hey there.
My point of view is when they put a camera in any kind of fast food, whatever, they put a camera look into the register. They don't never put a camera look into the cashier. You see? That's what they want to do with us. They want to put the camera look into us. And that's a violation of the privacy because, you see, you can take a video for me, but if I don't allow you to use that video because it's my image, you are in a violation, right? I can sue you because of that.
Right. I think that's based on the idea if it's used in a public setting. Right? Am I correct in that, Peyton, that if, say, a company released the driver's image to the general public, I mean, could they be held liable for something like that?
Yeah, if the company is using your image to make money or you were an athlete or someone with a recognizable face, something along those lines, you'd have a problem with issuing that picture, allowing that picture out for public consumption. But if you're just talking about videotaping the driver while they're driving around in public, as a member of that public, you're not going to have a necessary right to privacy.
Yeah, and thank you, Brian, for the call. And it gets back to this whole point that even though you're inside of that cab, if you are working for a company, say you're a company driver, that's your workplace. So the company's got the right to videotape you while you're in that cab. How would this apply to owner-operators out there that may be leased on to a company? Is that opening up a whole different ball of wax here?
Yeah, that in my mind would be a different ball of wax. The owner-operators own that truck. Yeah, they're leased on, they're providing a service, but they can up and quit anytime they want to. It would not be, in my mind, prudent for the company to require that owner-operator to run a camera. And now you can offer incentives if they do, but anytime you begin to dull that line of employee versus independent contractor and what you require someone to do versus what you suggest or incentivize them to do, you've got a problem. So an owner-operator, they own that truck, they can do whatever they want, and I would not suggest that a company take those affirmative steps of starting to require certain things other than are required by the FMCSAs.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's that's a whole different side of the story that's really not gotten a lot of press. Harper, next up in Wisconsin. Do you think it's a privacy issue too much, would you say, or do you think, man, it's needed out here to maybe vindicate, indeed, if there's an accident?
I have a question and a comment.
Sure.
My question is this: with the ones that record audio, in most states or many states, it is not legal to record the private conversation of a husband and wife or spouse and spouse, whatever. What about team drivers who are married? How would they be able to legally record audio?
Well, that's a very good question.
Excellent. Very good.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, a company has to tell you that camera's there. If they tell you the camera's there and you sign...
I'm not talking about cats, I'm talking audio. In many states, it is illegal to record the private conversations of a husband and a wife.
Well, without their knowledge. So I guess my point would be if the husband and wife, as either a simple driver and a passenger or as a team, sign an acknowledgement as part of their employment or as part of their owner-operator paperwork that they are aware of and agree to the use of that camera and the then I don't think you're going to have a problem.
Okay, Harper, thank you. Richie just brought up a great question, Peyton. He says, what about facilities that don't allow these recordings? How problematic is that going to be when you go to, say, a shipper, for example? Again, does it get down to an interpretation of its use here? What would you say?
I'd want to know a little bit more about the question. If someone isn't allowing videotape on their property, that could be problematic. I think you're going to see fewer and fewer properties that don't allow standard equipment in a truck on their premises for purposes of picking up and dropping off loads. Ultimately, it's going to hurt that property's productivity.
Yeah, all right. I got a break here. Drivers, great questions. Peyton, hold on. Man, we're flying through this hour. Drivers, we're talking about your privacy out there. Again, it's 888-876-2336. Pam Zeckman started off the show from CBS 2 in Chicago, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter talking about the story involving a camera that appears, I'm putting that in quotes, appears to have captured a driver dropping off sleeping, that he fell asleep behind the wheel, led to a subsequent accident that resulted in the death of a woman who was stopped in front of him. If you want to see the story, the video, it's up on Facebook at SiriusXM's Road Dog Trucking News. The defense attorney for the driver says, wait a minute, not true. The defense attorney says it shows something totally different. The courts are going to decide where this is going to go, obviously, and it is going to have its day in court, but it boils down to this whole idea of cameras inside of that cab. Can these cameras help you, maybe vindicate you in a court setting, or do you think it's a big deal and they should not be in there? Those cameras should not be in. Is it indeed an invasion of privacy? Mike, I've got you coming up out of the break in Montana, so stick around first. So it is time for the weather right here on the SiriusXM Road Dog Trucking Channel. Guys, if you are traveling out and about, heading into areas of the Northeast, if you're going to be traveling, say, around New York City, look for some rain, a little bit of snow for the evening commute, really into the overnight. Some mixed precipitation is going to try to make it close in. I'm really not expecting any accumulations unless you drive north, and I mean well north, like North Orange County in New York or Sussex County in New Jersey, but you might hear some rumbles of thunder overnight into Wednesday morning. Then the area is going to see the highs climbing up to about 60 degrees by Wednesday afternoon. So areas around New York City, you got some roller coaster weather coming up. I'm Mark Willis, live across North America, right here on the SiriusXM Road Dog Trucking Channel.
Back to Road Dog Trucking News with Mark Willis.
Drivers, hey again, welcome back. 888-876-2336. Next hour, Casey Phillips is going to be taking over the microphones from Nashville. He's got the mic up until 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Right after that, it's going to be Mark Rettig with Landline Magazine. Then following that, Freewheeling, Kevin Rutherford, Jonesy on the overnight. We're all over the place, guys. I'm in Dallas. Casey Phillips in Nashville. Rich Oliveri in New York City. Peyton Inge also in the Dallas area, and he's talking about the law, drivers, trucking rules and regulations, and we've been focusing this hour on cameras, guys, inside of the cab. I know we were going to talk about something else, Peyton, but man, I'll tell you, the phones have just been going nuts, and I appreciate you explaining the law to the drivers out there. Let's go to Mike in Montana. Thanks for waiting during the break. Yay or nay on the cameras in the truck?
Well, I would personally take one in a truck for the right job, but what I've not heard mentioned is that this seems to me like a private property rights issue. If you own a truck and you want to put a camera in it, feel free. If government wants you to put a camera in it, that's a whole different thing.
Why is that? Why is that a different thing? Why would you explain it?
If government wants you to put a camera in your private property, whether it's your truck, your car, your barn, or your house, once you let their nose in the door for that, next thing you know, they're going to want cameras in your house for some safety issue.
Yeah, okay. All right. Does it get down to that, Peyton, that the trucking industry needs to maybe do this on their own rather than have the government mandate all of this? How would you respond?
Yeah, I would be surprised if the government were to start requiring cameras in vehicles, because I don't think you're going to see a huge separation between private vehicles and commercial vehicles when it comes to the imposition of a government forcing you to put a camera in there. Yeah. I just don't see that. With respect to logbooks and things, it's a little bit different, but even there the government doesn't require that you submit it to them. You know, you're just supposed to monitor it yourself, and if asked, then you produce it. But it's not as if you're required to provide your logbooks on a rolling basis.
Yeah, okay, let's take one more. I'm going to go to Clayton in California. You don't mind the cams, right? You think it might be a good thing?
I don't have a problem with it. I have my own camera in the truck. It's a black box dual cam, and it records what's going on in the driver's seat as well as out the front windshield.
Okay. Okay, so you don't mind it at all. Some drivers have said, man, it's an invasion of privacy. You guys are held to higher standards. What would you say to those drivers that say too much?
I don't have a problem with it because, an invasion of privacy, you don't have any privacy when you're out in public.
Okay, right.
So, that's my take on that. And on top of that, if it ever did come a time where I got to an accident or whatever, I could submit my video footage. It's got both what I'm looking at out the windshield and what I'm doing in the driver's seat. So, if you're not doing anything stupid, it doesn't matter if you're being recorded or not.
Yeah, are you an owner-operator or a company driver?
I'm owner-operator.
You're an owner-operator. Okay. All right.
Yep.
That's all right. That's I appreciate that. That's an important distinction, Peyton, that, some owner-operators are indeed taking this initiative on their own, realizing the value. Do you think, just your own gut feeling, that more owner-operators may be doing the same thing?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I run one in my truck when I'm running out to the races or whatnot, and I've never had to use it. But there's been a couple times I wasn't sure I was going to be able to stop in time, and by God, sure would have been happy to have had that because it was, a car darting from the far left lane to the far right-hand lane that almost caused the collision in both cases. And, if that had been a collision, I know they would have tried to blame the truck, but it would have been, their fault, and the camera would have just demonstrated that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a trend. It is going to be continuing. More and more companies are going to be looking at installing those cameras. Peyton, thank you, sir, for breaking the law down for us. Let's get your website out there one more time.
Yeah, y'all can find me at the firm's website, ChamblyRyan.com. That's ChambleeRyan, RYAN.com.
All right, outstanding, sir. I'll reach out. Thank you for all of the help, and that is attorney Peyton Inge, drivers. I'm going to post a link up where you can find him, and also a link up to Pam Zeckman's story from CBS 2 in Chicago. She wants to hear from you. If you've got any stories you want to share about cameras inside of the cab, reach out to her. I know she's going to do a follow-up to this story probably in the next 30 days or so she could use your advice and your help. So, again, I'll post that coming up soon. Drivers, I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow on the radio right here, Sirius XM 146.